You wasn't kidding when you said it was short. Next up is Zach. With another short poem.
Yeah.
Round of applause.
Sorry, it's on my cell phone.
Yes, I wrote it.
Questions, answers, comments, phrases. Such are the foundations of communication. It's through ideas, voice, projected throughout space to all who might hear it. Sounds that spark thoughts, thoughts that lead to revolutions. Revolutions lead to empires, empires creating tragedies upon tragedies that stretch throughout the ages. Thus is society. Thus is the infection of man. What then is the solution? What then is the cure for this plague? Isolation? Death? Cleaner living? What can save someone from themselves? From their instincts? Nothing. All anyone can do is hold on and watch the cycle of self-destruction continue. So hold on tight, because this world's going to hell.
And next up is Brandon. Alright, cool. Looks like he's got a book.
Dylan Thomas.
Okay, I'm just going to read a short poem, Incarnate Devil by Dylan Thomas. Incarnate devil and a talking snake, the central plains of Asia and his garden. In shaping time, the circle stung awake. In shapes of sin, forked out the bearded apple. And God walked there, who was a fiddling warden, and played down pardon from the heavens hill. When we were strangers to the guided seas, a handmade moon, half holy in a cloud, the wise men tell me that the guardian gods twine good and evil on the eastern tree. And when the moon rose windily, it was black as the beast and paler than the cross. We in our Eden knew the secret guardian, and sacred waters that no frost could harden. And in the mighty mornings of the earth, Helena horn of sulfur and the cloven myth, all heaven in a midnight of the sun, a serpent fiddled in the shaping time.
And next up is Steven.
Okay, I'm just going to read a bit from a book called When You're Engulfed in Flames by David Sedaris. This is actually when he was in the process of trying to quit smoking, so give a little bit of context. In the months preceding our trip to Tokyo, I spoke to quite a few people that either quit smoking or tried to. A number of them had stopped for years. Then their step-grandmother died, or their dog grew a crooked tooth, and then they picked up where they left off. Do you think you were maybe looking for a reason to start again, I asked? All of them said no. The message was that you were never really safe. An entire decade without a cigarette, and then, wham! My sister Lisa started again after 6 years and told me, as had others, that quitting was much more difficult the second time around. When asked how they made it through the first few weeks, a lot of people mentioned the patch. Others spoke of gum and lozenges, of acupuncture, hypnosis, and some new drug everyone had heard about, but no one could remember the name of. Then there were the books. The problem with most so-called quit lists is that there are only so many times you can repeat the words smoking and cigarettes. The trick is to alternate them, not to reach for the source. It bothers me to read that so-and-so inhaled a cancer stick, that he sucked up a coffin nail. I don't know anyone who refers to tobacco as the evil weed. People in the UK, they genuinely say fags, but in America it's just embarrassing and self-consciously naughty, like calling a cat a pussy. The book I was given used all of these terms and more. I read the first 100 pages and then offered Hugh the following summary. The guy says that choking down lung busters is a filthy, disgusting habit. No, it's not, he said. After years of throwing open the windows and telling me I smelled like a casino, it seemed that Hugh didn't want me to quit. You just need to cut back a little, he told me. Not being a smoker myself, he didn't understand how agonizing that would be. It had been the same with alcohol. Easier to stop altogether than to test myself every day. As far as getting wasted was concerned, I was definitely minor league. All I know is that I drank to get drunk, and I succeeded every night for 20 years. For the most part, I was very predictable and gorgeous about it. I always waited until 8 p.m. to start drinking, and I almost always did it at home, most often at the typewriter. What began at age 22 as 1 beer per night eventually became 5, followed by two tall scotches, all on an empty stomach, and within a period of 90 minutes. Dinner would sober me up a little, and after eating, I'd start smoking pot. Worse than anything was the dullness of it. Night after night, the exact same story. He didn't smoke pot, and though he might have a cocktail and maybe some wine with dinner, he's never seemed dependent on it. At 11, you could talk to him on the phone, and he'd sound no different from the way he would at noon. Call me at 11, and after a minute or so, I'd forget who I was talking to. Then I'd remember and celebrate by taking another bong hit. Even worse was when I placed the call. Yes, I'd say. May I please speak to, you know, he has brownish hair, drives a van with his name written on it. Is this David? Yes. And you want to speak to your brother Paul? That's it. Could you put him on, please? Most often I'd stay up until 3, rocking back and forth in my chair, thinking of the things I could do if I weren't so fucked up. He would go to bed around midnight, and after he'd fallen asleep, I'd have dinner all over again. Physically, I couldn't have been done. It was just the pot talking. Fry me an egg, he would demand. Make me a sandwich. Cut a piece of cheese and smear it with whatever's on that shelf there. We couldn't keep a condiment for longer than a week, no matter how horrid or ridiculous it was. Where's that Nigerian tikka sauce? Infanta, rock. That was from Lagos last Tuesday. He would ask, and I'd say, tikka sauce, I never saw it. In New York, I got my marijuana through a service. You called a number, recited your code name, and 20 minutes later, an apple-cheeked NYU student would show up at your door. In his knapsack would be 8 varieties of pot, each with its own clever name and distinctive flavor. Getting high on Thompson Street was the easiest thing in the world. But in Paris, I had no idea where to find such a college student. I knew a part of town where people lurked in the shadows. The way they whispered and beckoned was familiar. But as a foreigner, I didn't dare risk getting arrested. Then, too, they were most likely selling moss or the innards of horsehair sofas. The things I've bought from strangers in the dark with curly hair. You don't withdraw from marijuana the way you do from speed or cocaine. The body doesn't miss it, but the rest of you sure does. I wonder what this would look like stoned. I said this to myself 20 times a day, referring to everything from Notre Dame to the high beam ceiling in our new apartment. Pot made the normal look 10 times better, so I can only imagine what it did to the extraordinary. If I survived in Paris without getting high, it was only because I still had drinking to look forward to. The bottles in France are smaller than they are in the States, but the alcohol content is much higher. I'm no good at math, but figured that 5 American beers equals 9 French ones. This meant I had to be vigilant about the recycling. Skip a day and it would look like I had Belgian over. In the time I knew that my quota would increase, and then increase again. I wanted to quit before that happened. The practical concerns kept getting in the way. When drinking and working went hand in hand, it was easy to sit at your desk every night. Without it, though, how could a person write? What would the incentive? Then there was the mess of quitting, the treatment center with the chatterbox roommate, the AA meetings where you'd have to hold hands. In the end, I stopped on my own. One night without a drink became 2 nights, and so on and so on. The first few weeks were kind of shaky, but a lot of it was just me being dramatic.